right, guys, welcome back, everybody. So, just to remind everybody, exam next Thursday, and class is going to be online on Tuesday, all right? So let's talk for a minute about the exam, okay? The exam has 4 sections, okay? The 4 sections are, the first section covers basic concepts, in other words, chapter 1 of the textbook, okay? It also covers cultural relativism, and it covers the relation between religion and morality, so chapter 4 of the textbook. So it's chapters 1, 2, and 4, all right? The second section of the exam covers egoism, psychological egoism, and ethical egoism, all right? And the third section is utilitarianism, and the last section is on deontology, so it's 4 sections, okay? Each section has 3 questions, all right? Every question, they're all short answer questions. You got to answer them. It's probably going to take you 2-3 sentences. Some of them will take more than others, okay? And only the 10 best count to your grade, all right? So the lowest 2 are dropped. If you feel like you are stuck on something and you don't know how to answer it, I would just jump over it and come back to it at the end if there's time, okay? Because like I said, the 2 lowest ones are going to get dropped, all right? Are you going to get graded on spelling and grammar? Not directly, but you got to write like you're in college, okay? Can everybody handle that? Okay, so you need to use complete sentences first of all right? All right. So to prepare for it, you need to, what I would do is I would look over the study questions because all the questions on the exam are study questions, okay? So if you can answer the study questions, you'll be able to answer anything that's on the exam. I've been giving those out. I hope everybody's been using them. So if you haven't, you got some work to do. If you have, you should be in good shape, all right? So I would also compare those to the quizzes. The quizzes will let you know, they're the same questions, and the quizzes will let you know when you thought you knew something, but maybe you don't know it as well as you thought you did, all right? And, of course, you can always come to my office and ask me if hey, this is what I have, is this correct or not, all right? So obviously, there's not a lot of time to do that now before the exam because I'm going to be gone all week. But I'll be in my office on Friday, and I'll also be up there Thursday right before the exam if you have last-minute questions, okay? Any questions concerning the exam? All right, good. Okay, so we're talking about deontology. What is deontology? What's deontology? It's a moral theory. What's the main idea? Yeah, Megan?
Actions should conform to moral rules.
What's that?
Actions should conform to moral
Yep,
rules.
your actions should conform to moral rules. Is that what you're going to say too?
Yeah.
Okay. So, who's Immanuel Kant? Who's Immanuel Kant? Yeah.
He wanted a non-religious form of deontology.
That's a really good answer. That's what he wanted. Where was he from? Do you remember that?
No, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Germany.
He's German, right? Well, I mean, there was no Germany then, but he was from that area. He spoke German, right? Do you remember roughly when he was alive about?
1700.
Yeah, it was 1700s, and he was alive for a long time, so it was most of the 1700s, right? Died during the Napoleonic Wars in the very early 1805. He died. So going back to what you were saying, he was trying to get deontology on kind of like a non-religious basis. Like, what was he doing that for? Why was he trying to do that? Yeah, sure.
Because at that point, religion was starting to lose the strength it had, and that was sort of the normal way of thinking about morality up until then.
Right, yeah, so up until then, people had been, they've been deontologists, but they were kind of like religious deontologists. And in the 1700s, people were starting to ask questions about God, the existence of God, the authority of the church, for kind of like, for reals, and, for kind of like the first time in history. And when you just kind of kicked out from underneath everybody the reason why they were immoral in the first place, that had a really kind of like, that sent a lot of people in kind of a really bad direction, right? For some people it was really good. They started to ask deep questions about why there were certain social institutions and why, some things were considered right and some things were considered wrong. And they started to ask like why, women have always been subordinate to man, we've always had slaves, we've always done these things, but maybe we should ask questions about this, right? So, there's this positive aspect, but there was also this negative aspect for a lot of people where they were just kind of adrift and they had nowhere to look for morality. And so you had, on the one hand, the utilitarians were trying to kind of replace what was lost with something that was radically different, and on the other hand, Kant was trying to kind of replace it with something that was basically the same, but just wasn't religious, right? Okay, so Kant talks about these things called imperatives, right? So what's a hypothetical imperative? So you better remember what's Cole?
You do it to accomplish a specific goal.
Something you do to accomplish a specific goal. Can you give me an example of it's something you should do. We should say should do, right? Because an imperative is a should, right?
Take the bar to become a lawyer.
But yeah, if you want to be a lawyer, you should pass the bar exam, right? You don't care about being a lawyer, you don't have much of a reason to do that, right? Okay, then he's got the categorical imperative. So what is a categorical imperative? What does it mean for like something? Yeah.
It's like a universal law.
So you got to do it, right? No matter what, it doesn't matter what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, or what your likes or dislikes are. You got to do it, okay? And Kant, he thought that there's only one of them, right? And what's the categorical imperative for Kant? Yeah.
Act according to that maxim by which you would, and then I didn't get the rest of it
Okay.
after that, but
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's the categorical, that's the categorical imperative, okay? Does anybody kind of remember what that means in like English? Yeah, Max?
You should do what you would want people doing all the time.
Yeah, just do what you want everybody, do only what you would want to become a universal law, right? In other words, only do what you would want everybody doing all the time, okay? So, I don't really care if you memorize that. That doesn't make sense to most of you in the first place, right? But you gotta remember what the categorical imperative means. Did everybody remember that? Yeah? Okay. So, Kant means, when you have a moral choice, you only do what you would want everybody doing all the time, okay? So, for Kant, all moral rules, they go back to that one. That's really the only rule you need. Everything else goes back to that, okay? Does everybody feel like they understand that? Okay, so to take Kant's own favorite example, you never lie, Okay, because you never lie under any circumstances. Why do you think that tells you to not lie? Yeah, Cole?
I guess because you don't want someone lying to you.
Well, it's even more general than that, right? You wouldn't want,
Because if everyone was lying, then it would be chaos. Like it would.
yeah, no, so you're right to an extent, but you don't want to get this mixed up with it's not the golden rule, okay? It's not quite the golden rule. It's only do what you would want everybody doing. So would you want to live in a world where everybody lies all the time? Like no rational person would want that, right? That's crazy. So, all right. So in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but I want to say at the same time, Kant also gives a much different wording of the categorical imperative in other places in his work, and he just talks about these like they're the same thing, okay? Act. Act so that you treat humanity, whether in your own person. Okay, and that where it says in your own person there, that's important to notice, okay? In your own person, or that of another, always as an end, and never as a means, as a mere means, I should say. Never use it as a mere means, okay? All right, so what is it, what's that mean? What does that mean, do you think? Yeah.
We never use someone to accomplish a goal.
You never use somebody to accomplish a goal, that's right, okay? You don't use yourself to accomplish a goal either, right? So you don't use people, including yourself, merely as a means to accomplish a goal, okay? So Kant scholars, obviously those look like they're saying very different things, right? And people who are like specialists on Kant, they have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the deal is, if Kant thought of those as really saying the same thing in different words, or if there's really two categorical imperatives, or like what was going on, but that's not, we don't care about that, that's not important for us, okay? We're just gonna call those the two formulations of the categorical imperative, okay? Cool. All right, so you never use people, including yourself, as a ways or a means to accomplish a goal or to accomplish an ends, right? Instead of person, like their well-being and their life, that always has to be the goal. That always has to be the end in itself. It's never something you use to accomplish something else, all right? Does everybody feel like they understand that? Okay, so let's rewind way back to ancient history. Okay, who remembers baby Teresa? Anybody remember baby Teresa? Who can tell me what's the deal with baby Teresa? Sure, Cole.
She was the baby that was born, like, basically brain dead.
Not quite, but
Not
like
quite,
the
but it's
cerebellum
almost.
was, she didn't have a cerebellum, so she was probably not, she wasn't conscious. She just had a brain stem, right? And so like her lungs and heart were going, but they were only gonna go for a little while, right? So what did her parents want to do?
Harvest her organs.
Sure, go ahead. You
Uh,
already started.
they were gonna like take her to like harvest her organs so they can use them on their kids.
That's right, because if they let her die, she was gonna die naturally in a few hours or days, but if they waited that long, those organs weren't gonna be usable, right? Okay, so, you know, a lot of people were like, well, that's a good plan, right? Because she's not even conscious. She's gonna die soon anyway, and we can save all these other babies, okay? All these other babies are gonna survive because organs for babies are always in like really short supply, okay? So does everybody remember that now? Okay. Now, some medical ethicists, like philosophers who specialize in medical ethics, they said that's a terrible idea. They thought that was terrible, right? Why did they say that? What was their reason?
They were scared that it was going to spiral.
That, okay, yes, that was one reason, right? But what, okay, maybe I should clarify. That's absolutely a reason, but what's a reason that's related to what we're talking about right now?
Don't use people as means.
Don't use people as a means to an end. They said you don't use people as a means to an end, right? Granted, it's a really good ends. You're gonna save all these other babies, but you don't do that, right? Okay, so those philosophers who said that, they're deontologists. They were inspired by Kant and his way of thinking, okay? All right, so does everybody understand, what do you think a utilitarian would say? Yeah, well,
Take the organs.
take the organs, yeah. Even a utilitarian who wouldn't say, who's like some kind of rule utilitarian or whatever, they're probably gonna say yes, because like, she's not even conscious, you're not hurting her, right? They would reason like that. Okay, so let's talk about this categorical imperative and see how this applies to certain cases, and let's think about what Kant would recommend, okay? So, let's talk about some situations that Kant talked about. And the first one is borrowing money, okay? So, you're gonna ask, what would you do? We'll ask, what would Bentham do? And what would Kant do? Okay? All right, so let's say your rent is due, all right? You're about to get evicted, all right? Being evicted sucks, right? Okay? So you're about to get kicked out on the street with like nothing, and you know you can go down to the pit, you can go down to like the bank, or no, let's say you can go to your friend. You can go to your friend and tell your friend, you know, hey, if you loan me, you know, you spot me $2,000 this month, I promise I'll pay you back on the first. I promise, right? But you know, there's actually no way you can pay her back. There's no way. It's just not going to happen. You owe too much money to too many other people who can put your ass in jail. Okay. So, does everybody understand the situation? Okay, I mean, you know, you can get that money out of your friend if you lie, but. Okay, so what do you guys think in that situation? What would you do? Yeah,
It's either that or be homeless.
yeah,
Oh, I'm lying. I'm sorry. I gotta live.
yeah, okay. I mean, that's a valid viewpoint, right? Yeah, being homeless is bad, that's bad, man. And how are you gonna recover from that, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously your friend's got money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Aren't you the never use a person as a means to an end guy?
See, no.
But anyway, man.
It's that or just sleep on the street. It's,
Yeah, never use
I gotta
people as
put me first.
Yeah, never use people as a means to an end until it's your ass on the line.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, all right, guys. Okay, everybody close your eyes for a second. Who'd borrow the money? All right, put your hands down. Who wouldn't? All right, put your hands down. Open your eyes. You know, we're split about 50-50 on that. Okay. Okay. What do you think? What do you think that Jeremy Bentham would do? What would he recommend? What's that?
Take them here?
Probably. Why do you think he would say that?
Because you're supposed to distribute everything like.
Well, I mean, you know, you're not supposed to like steal stuff. But I mean, let's think about this. Why do you think Bentham would? Yeah.
For the land.
I'm sure the landlord probably needs his money as well.
What's that?
The landlord probably needs his money as
Well,
well.
landlord probably needs your friend's money too, right? I mean, I could use your friend's money too, though, I mean.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
Well, okay, I mean, no, that's a valid point, that's a valid point, right? But, I don't know, what do you think's more harmful, like you being homeless or your friend losing $2,000? Okay, right, so Bentham would probably say, he'd probably recommend doing it, right? Because the damage of stealing that money is less than the damage of being homeless, right? Does everybody understand that? Okay, what do you think Kant would say to do? He'd say no, right? Why do you think he'd say no? Yeah, there's that, okay, because you're using somebody as a means to an end. Yeah,
You're lying to them.
you're lying, okay, and where does the prohibition on lying come back to?
Comes back to that.
To both of those, right? Okay, so that's right, that it's violating, that you're using that person as a means to an end. Can anybody see a way, does it violate that first one?
You're lying, right?
Okay, then why aren't you supposed to lie?
Because if everyone lies,
Well, there's also, yeah, Max?
It's like if everyone borrowed money that they knew they weren't gonna be able to pay back, then like, it would just be horrible.
Yeah. Do you guys want to live in a world where everybody's borrowing money and not intending to pay it back?
I mean, don't we kind of do that? Like.
I mean, yeah, I mean, okay, is this a good world? I mean, okay, but anyway, Kant's like hell on it, right? Okay. Okay, so walking down the street, you got $1, all right? It's not like your last dollar, you know, you're okay. But you know, there is something you want to do with. You can't really do much with $1 anymore, can you? Okay, so you got like $10, all right? And you're gonna, I don't know whatever you're gonna do with $10. You're gonna get some hash browns at Waffle House or something, okay? So you're going to Waffle House with your $10, all right? And you pass like a ringer for the Salvation Army, right? And he's like, hey, can you spare like $5 or something, okay? So you know, it's not like everything you have, but it's a pretty good chunk of it, okay? So all right, so everybody close your eyes for a second. Who's gonna hook that guy up? Okay, put your hands down. Who's like, no, dude, solve your own damn problems. All right, put your hands down, Mr. Moneybags. All right, open your eyes. Okay. So most of you said yes, but it wasn't 100%. It was like 3/4. Okay. Okay. What would Bentham do? Yeah, that's pretty obvious, right? A utilitarian's gonna be like, yeah, of course, this means more to you than it does to me, right? You need it more. Okay. What do you think Kant would do? Yeah, what do you think?
He wouldn't do it because he's using himself as a means to an end.
Well, not necessarily, because okay, so look, it's not that you can't ever use people, right? I mean, if that was true, you wouldn't be able to employ people at work, right? And you wouldn't be able to like make yourself study for an exam. You can't use them. That's why this word, that word's key, right? Yeah.
Can I use the top one?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like he wouldn't do it because he wouldn't want to be giving charity to everybody for the rest of his life.
Okay.
Like, he wouldn't want to live in a world that's just
Yeah.
based off of charity.
That's a good answer. He actually has a different answer. Okay, he says yeah. Okay, so remember, we're not talking about giving away like all your money or anything like utilitarian is, but we're talking about making, you know, like you can make a donation and you should, right? And why do you think that is? Why do you think Kant says you should, if you got some spare change, you should be sharing the wealth, right? Not to the point of like an act utilitarian, but you know, within reasonable limits, you should be doing it. Why do you think he might say that? Adriana, what you had to say was very smart. That was a good answer, but he reasoned a different way about this. Why do you think he might say something different? Yeah.
Cause like one day it might be you that's begging.
Yeah, so do you wanna live in, would you wanna live in a world with no charity, where everybody walks by and doesn't donate at all? You don't wanna do that, and like, exactly like you said, that might be you someday, and so you got a very real incentive not to pass up the bell ringer, right? Okay, so Kant says yes, okay? All right, so the third one, the famous one, of course, is the inquiring murderer. And we all know, I mean, I hope we all say we lie, okay? And we all know what Bentham would do, and we all know what Kant would do, but can anybody explain to me why would he not lie in that situation? Why do you think he wouldn't lie? Yeah.
Because we wouldn't want to live in a world where everyone
Yeah.
lies.
You don't want to live in a world where everybody lies, and that's just the way he sees that situation. You got to follow that categorical imperative, okay? All right. So we've seen how Kant's moral system it handles certain cases. Let's talk now about the basis that's supposed to be underlying these choices. All right. So Kant, he's in kind of a hard position with trying to sell his theory, because he has to explain what's supposed to be, why you have these sort of like absolute bedrock rules, but he can't appeal to like God or religion. He's got to explain these in some other way, right? Why would you have such strong, unbreakable rules if it's not God telling you, right? So, what do you think he could use as a basis for morality? Or you guys might have picked this up from reading the chapter. What was it? What do you think his basis was? What did he base this all on? Yeah. Yes, very good. I was about to ask you what the name of his most famous book was. Yeah, there you go. That's how you know that. Reason. All right. So, look, when you think about the categorical imperative, all right, at first glance, that seems like it's a consequentialist rule, right? Because when you act, you need to think about, is the role, it seems like what you're doing is you're trying to think about whether the world would be better or worse off given what decision you make, right? And that does sound kind of utilitarian, right? Does that sound kind of utilitarian to anybody? Yeah, right? So, what do you think the difference is? Why is this not actually a utilitarian rule? All right, so the real motivation for following the categorical imperative is not supposed to be about whether the world is going to be better or worse based on your decision. That's not supposed to be what you're thinking about, all right? It's supposed to be because if you make the wrong choice, you're going to get involved in logical inconsistencies, right? You're going to be like the cultural relativist who's like, the only moral rule is if there's no moral rules, that kind of thing, right? So, for example, if you lie, for the categorical imperative, you're willing that everybody is going to lie all the time, okay? So that is definitely going to be an inconvenient world to live in. It's going to be chaos, right? Nobody's going to be able to communicate. But that's not really the point. The problem is that in a world like that, lying doesn't do anybody any good, right? Why would lying not serve any purpose? If everybody's lying. Yeah.
Oh, you can just never know if they're telling the truth or not, if they're constantly lying.
I mean, everybody's going to assume everybody's lying anyway, right? So, like, lying's not going to help you out at all, right? I mean, saying anything's not going to help you out. But no one would think you were telling the truth. They'd assume you're just lying like everybody else is, so there'd be no point in trying to get an advantage by lying, right? So that's supposed to make the motivations to lie contradictory, because you'd be saying, I want to get the advantages of lying, but I want to live in a world where there's no advantages to lying, right? And so it's like this logical contradiction, right? You're supposed to be wanting two things that are incompatible, all right? Can everybody see how that works? Yeah. Okay, so likewise, if you want to borrow money and you can't pay it back, you're wishing that nobody would pay back loans, right? And of course, that would mean that nobody would ever loan money, right? And so, yeah, the world would be a worse off place if nobody loaned money to others. We'd be back into the Middle Ages, and the economy would be bad, right? But for a deontologist, that's not the real point, right? Their point is that you're wishing something self-contradictory by wishing somebody would loan you money, but at the same time wishing that the world would be such that nobody would loan anybody money, right? So if you're a reasonable person, you're going to realize that you're getting yourself into a logical contradiction there by acting against the categorical imperative. And so you're just supposed to stay on the straight and narrow and not do things that are logically inconsistent. All right. So does everybody feel like they understand the deal there? Yeah. All right. So as we discussed a little bit ago, Kant also formulated the categorical imperative in a different way that said never treat people as a means to an end, right? Rather, human beings are the ends at which all other things serve, right? All other things are supposed to serve human beings. Human beings are the ultimate thing, right? So you can never erode that status by using them to serve as a mere means to an ends, any ends whatsoever, even if that ends is another person, all right? So human beings have a special status for Kant, all right? They're the only rational agents in the universe besides God, and God is like in his own category. You can't really know much about him, all right? So the fact that human beings are the only things that are rational, they're capable of rational thought and reflection, it makes them the only things in the universe that are intrinsically valuable, okay? So what do you think that term means, intrinsically valuable? Yeah.
They have like value in and of themselves.
They have value in and of themselves, right? So human beings have values in and of themselves. They don't have values based on what you can do with them, right? Like, does money have intrinsic value? No. All right. Does nature have intrinsic value? That's a hard question. It kind of depends, right? Yeah. There's a lot of questions you can ask like that. Like art, does art have intrinsic value? Does love have intrinsic value? I don't know, it's hard to say. But, human beings are the only things that are intrinsically valuable because they are rational agents. Okay? Anything else has only instrumental value. Okay? So, you know, in contrast to human beings, every other thing in the universe is only valuable in an instrumental sense, right? Meaning that other things, they're only worth anything insofar as they can help people to accomplish their goals, okay? So, does everybody feel like they understand the difference between instrumental and intrinsic value? Okay. Can everybody read that in the back? Okay. So, why do you think, what do you think it is about being rational that's like so important? Why is that so key? Why is that considered so key? What do you think it is about being rational that's like so special? So just because you're smart or? Yeah.
But they can use reason.
Well, that's what it means, right? Okay, so, being rational, it's not just that you're smart. It's supposed to come along with, being smart is supposed to mean that you kind of come along with a special status, because a rational agent is capable of self-determination, all right? And that self-determination, that autonomy is supposed to be really important, right? So if you have self-determination, if you're capable of self-determination, you have like plans and hopes and dreams and things that you want to accomplish with your life, right? So Kant thought that because rational agents, they're the only things with goals for themselves, they're the only things that are valuable in that way, right? So anything else, because they don't have goals of their own, they're only valuable insofar that they help human beings out with their projects. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so human beings are the only things that have value, because, you know, real value, because they are rational. Everything else is only instrumentally valuable. They only matter as far as they help humans out with their projects, right? So this is actually seen as one of the major problems with Kant's philosophy. All right, a lot of people don't like this part. Can anybody think of why would people object to this? Why would they say this is not right? Yeah, Max?
I don't know, this might be a weird example, but it's just what came into my head. I just thought about like beavers, how it takes them a while to build a dam. That's kind of like a goal that they have, so.
No, yeah, that's exactly right, right? That's exactly right, okay? Yeah,
Well, environmental, like,
what's that?
environmental issues like,
Mhm.
using the environment as an instrument is,
Yeah, that's a good point. So that more, yeah, Ruby?
What about people that are in like comas?
Yeah, so you guys have just hit the major stuff on the head, right? Okay, so animals, it seems really bad to say animals have no moral value. That seems like a really crass thing to say, right? There's humans who are not rational as well, right? And we want to think they have moral value. And people have been picking on those, pointing those things out for a long time. And now more recently, like Cole's saying, and also even going farther in, so like recently in Western culture, but like really in a lot of other cultures for a long time, nature and the environment has been seen as having intrinsic value as well, right? Like, why should you treat nature like it's just there to serve people, right? Like the environment's valuable on its own, right? A lot of people feel that. So those are like three problems, okay? Does everybody kind of understand that? So these are actually major problems, right? So it certainly seems like Kant is kind of onto something here, but maybe like he should have worked the details of this out a lot more, right? Because one problem with his view is that non-human animals are quite rational. They're very good at solving problems and figuring things out. Now, of course, they're a little bit less reflexive about it than humans are. Like the beavers are smart. They can build a dam. That's pretty complicated. Then I don't think they really think about it as much as a person would. Like I don't know if I want to spend my life building dams. Maybe I want to be like a philosopher or something. But you know, but they have plans and goals for their lives the same way people do, okay? You know, like the beaver wants to build dams, the cow wants to eat grass, you know? And it seems very wrong to say that non-human animals, they only have just instrumental value, like they're only good for helping people to accomplish their goals, right? Because they share this same thing that is supposed to make humans so special. Now, granted, they have less of it, but they have it, right? So, another point is Ruby's point that a lot of humans, they don't have this property because they're not rational. They don't have any plans or goals. They're like small children. They're very old. They're mentally ill. They were injured or they had some kind of illness that's taken their capacity away from them. And we all kind of feel like we still need to treat those people with respect and care. If anything, we feel like they need more of it, right? Whether they're rational or not, right? So do you think these are kind of problems for Kant's theory? Yeah. What conclusion do you think we should draw from that? Maybe that's kind of an open-ended question. So one conclusion people might draw is like, hey, I guess I don't want to be a deontologist, right? Another theory, another way of thinking about it would be like maybe we need to modify this theory somehow. So a lot of people study Kant, but real like honest like Kantian, like a straight Kantian deontologist is pretty rare. Like I don't know, I've never met any, right? Okay, so we'll see in a few weeks philosophers. We'll talk a bit about animal ethics, and philosophers who advocate for animal rights. They've really kind of pushed on this weakness in Kant's theory, right? This attitude that Kant has, that humans are completely unique and having their lives matter because they're smarter. A lot of them have pointed out that just doesn't make sense, all right? So we'll come back to these questions later in the class, but for now, we can see why it was that Kant considered it so wrong, why he considers it so important not to take advantage of people, why he thinks that's so important, right? It's because they're rational, okay? So this covers big wrongs, like killing another person for enjoyment or to take their resources. Obviously, that's using them as a means. But also things like lying or getting them to do something on false premises, right? Like if you like lie to somebody about how much you're going to pay them for a service or something like that, that's definitely wrong too. You're using them as a means, right? So Kant and his followers, they took such strong stance again. They took a really strong stance against taking advantage of others because of that, because you're using them as a mere means, right? It's treating them like they have instrumental value, okay? So it's kind of like a logical mistake. You're treating things that go in one category like they go in another. And that's kind of like it violates reason to treat something that has intrinsic value as if it has only instrumental value, all right? Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So let's say, let's go back to that case of the person who needs the loan, okay? So, or let's say, you're back in that situation. You're about to be homeless. Your friend's got the money. You can get the money by lying, okay? So what do you think Kant would recommend that you actually do in that situation? I mean, obviously you're not going to lie, but what might you do? Max?
Be honest with them, and if they say no, they say no.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Cole?
Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, that's exactly what Kant would say, right? Instead of taking advantage of your friend by lying about your ability to repay the loan, you tell her honestly about your financial situation, and you say, look, you're my friend, I really like your help, and let your friend, as a free rational agent, decide what she's going to do, okay? So that ties back to the other way the categorical imperative is expressed, because you certainly wouldn't want it to be a universal law, that everybody uses everybody else for their own goals without keeping anybody else's kind of life projects and what they want to do with themselves in mind, right? So again, Kant, he sees this as kind of a logical mistake. By taking advantage of another person, you're conflating two different categories of things. You're conflating things that are valuable in and of themselves with things that only have instrumental value, all right? So is all this making good sense? Everybody understand? Is Kant onto something here, or, yeah?
He talks a lot about being against lying. What does he specifically categorize as lying? Because in the murder case, he could have just simply not answered.
Okay, yeah, so like, you gotta realize in the murderer case, it's supposed to be like, you have to answer, like that guy's he's got like this axe or something, and he's like, I'm gonna cut your head off if you don't answer, right? So like, you can do others, you're supposed to try other things, you're supposed to try to like, and Kant said, like, he's like, this is kind of dumb, right? You're gonna call the cops, or you're gonna lock the door, right? But like, but he's like, yeah, if that guy, like, if for whatever reason, are you gonna let your head get cut off before you're gonna give the kid up, right? But he's like, yeah, fine. If you want to play this game, if you really get cornered and you got to answer, then like, yeah, you gotta tell the truth. But yes, that's a good point. Does everybody understand that? Kant's not advocating that you're like, oh yeah, like kid's like right back there, go get him, right? He's like, you should try to get out of that situation some other way, but don't lie. Yeah.
I don't really get how that's done though, because I mean that does happen.
Well, I mean, okay, yeah, no, I mean you're right. Yeah, you get into a situation. So the way that story is set up is not very realistic, right? And like the trolley problem is not very realistic, but yes, you get into these situations for sure, right? And some people who are like Kantians, they say that, especially ones who are kind of like religious as well, they say like, yeah, these situations don't really happen. God will always give you a way out. I don't think that's entirely clear. Like, yeah, you get into dilemmas, that's true. Yeah, so yes, you're right. I should not have called it dumb. That was careless of me. So yeah, but Kant said like one thing that Kant did point out that was kind of important to realize is that the way that situation is described, though, it's not always very realistic. Like, you don't always know what the consequences of your actions are going to be, right? So, he said, for example, if you lie, you may actually be giving the kid up. Like, you don't know, because you don't know for sure, like, if that kid was hiding, the kid could have been trying to run away somewhere else, right? And, that's kind of true. That's something you should think about when people have, like, these thought experiments, is you don't always know for sure what the consequences of your actions are going to be the way it's stipulated in the stories, right? And that's kind of what he was trying to point out. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, so two parts of Kant are really notorious and they've been widely discussed, right? And one of them, of course, is this inquirer and murderer case. And the other one is what he had to say about crime and punishment. And we kind of got onto this a lot when we talked about utilitarianism, but it's worth going back to because it's pretty interesting, actually. Okay, so why do you think we punish criminals? Why do we do that as a society? Yeah.
To show others that, it's not okay to, commit these crimes.
Yeah, to set an example for others, yeah. What is that, why else do we punish criminals?
As a form of justice.
Justice, yeah, we gotta restore justice, Ruby.
Like consequences, keep them from doing it again.
What's that?
Like consequences, keep them from doing it again.
Okay, yeah, so you don't want them to do it again, or others to do it again, so you gotta set an example for both of them. You wanna restore justice, like justice is important, right? Justice is fairness, right? So, maybe it wouldn't be fair if somebody suffers like some kind of terrible crime, like they're assaulted or something, it wouldn't be fair to like let that person go, that wouldn't be justice, right? So anyway, what did Kant say? Why do we punish criminals? All right, so does nobody remembers that, why Kant said you punish criminals? Yeah,
Rehabilitate
what's that?
them.
Oh,
Rehabilitate.
Kant would definitely not say that.
It's because they did a crime and the more they need to be, they
Sort
need
of.
to have a punishment that's proportionate to their crime.
Yeah, why did he say that though?
Was it for retribution? Is that the one?
Yeah, okay, let's talk about this. So there's two kinds of views on punishment, right? There's reform and there's retribution, okay? So, we're gonna be a mix of these things, just like most people are a mix of deontologist and utilitarian, but those are the two views, right? So the predominant view throughout history, it was that the purpose of punishment, that was it was to punish, right? So criminals, they gotta pay their debt to society. In traditional European societies, they also had to pay a debt they had to literally pay money to the victim or to the surviving family. And a lot of people still have this view, right? They feel like criminals, especially violent ones, they have to suffer in some way that's proportionate to the victim's suffering, right? To make things right and to restore the balance of justice that they disturbed, right? So others say that didn't make any sense, all right? Hurting the criminal, that's not helping the criminal, and that's not helping society at large, right? All that it accomplishes to hurt a criminal is to compound the amount of suffering that has already occurred, okay? So in this point of view, the point of the legal system, it's not to punish, it's to correct behavior, all right? And return the criminal back out into society as a productive member, all right? So, which one of these do you think is more influential in contemporary views? What's that?
Reform.
Yeah, right. Reform is more, at least theoretically, like the penal system in most Western countries is supposed to be aimed at reform. Okay? Like, you're not really putting people there because it's going to make them suffer. You're putting people in jail because they need some time out, and you're going to like retrain them and teach them job skills and to be a productive member of society and all that good stuff. You're going to release them back out there, okay? All right. So, all right, does everybody feel like they understand the difference here? Do you guys think one of these is better than the other? Or? Yeah, which one?
I think reform.
You think reform's better? Why was that?
Just, I don't see the point in just punishment for punishment's sake.
Yeah, you don't see the point in hurt. I mean, why hurt somebody if you don't have to, right? If you can accomplish getting them back out in society without doing that, right? Why do it? Anybody feel differently about that? No. I mean, what if your parents got murdered?
I mean,
I think it's different for different crimes.
It's different for different crimes. Depends on the nature of the crime.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's fair. All right. So, a lot of how people feel about punishment and the purpose of punishment, that depends. It's going to depend on how much they feel people are responsible for their actions, right? So people who believe strongly in free will, they tend to advocate a view of punishment as retribution, all right? So people who believe in free will, they tend to be into retribution. And people who believe that we don't really control our actions, it's just kind of like our brain chemicals controlling, making us do things, they tend to be more about like correcting behavior, right? And we're going to talk more about that after the exam. We'll talk about free will, okay? But in any case, which one of these views, we've already talked about this, but which one of these views do you think is more closely associated with utilitarianism?
reform.
Reform, right? And, this is a more deontological outlook. Okay? So utilitarians, they view the point as reforming the criminal, and the fact, again, they were kind of the ones who introduced this idea in Western culture, right? Before that, nobody really thought of this, and the utilitarians were like, hey, we're thinking about this the wrong way. Instead of punishing people, we should be just trying to reform them and get them out there to be good citizens, right? So they believe in reform, they believe punishment. They say like, yeah, sometimes you do have to punish people, right? Sometimes you gotta do that, okay? But it's a necessary evil, right? Okay? So like, sometimes you gotta do it, but it's not a good thing, okay? So Bentham said punishment is inherently bad because it makes the criminal suffer, and you're trying to maximize the happiness in the world. If you're making that criminal suffer, you're decreasing the happiness, right? And, he says, look, I do know that sometimes for the greater good of society, you do have to punish people. You got these really egregious cases, you got to make an example out of people. But at the same time, he said that's a necessary evil. It's not a good thing, right? And Bentham and later thinkers who've had this point of view, they've also pointed out that criminals, especially violent ones, they often come from disadvantaged backgrounds and they have turbulent personal situations, and they probably suffer from mental issues as well. And the idea is they're just kind of like, they're not fully responsible for what they've done, and what they need is a helping hand. They don't need to be punished, okay? So that's one point of view, right? So on the other hand, deontologists, they're more concerned with things like justice and duties, and they're more inclined to see punishment as a matter of fairness, right? So Kant, in particular, he liked that kind of reasoning, okay? He felt that a society that did not punish criminals, they implicitly share in the guilt for the crime that was committed, all right? So like if a society lets a murderer go free, everybody in that society is sharing in the guilt of that murder, all right? But he also had a different reason. He had another reason that strikes a lot of people as really strange, but it fits well with his strict requirement that you always treat a person as a rational agent, all right? Does anybody remember what that was from the textbook? Why is that requirement that you always treat somebody as a rational agent? Why would that push you to being into retribution? Why do you think that might be? Yeah, Max?
Because they rationally, logically decided to do the bad thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And Cole, were you gonna say something? Okay, look. If I caught you cheating on the exam, right? And I punished you, that's bad, but I mean you understand why that would be fair, right? Okay, now if I took you in my office and I'm like, yeah, I understand. Look, I'm not going to punish you. I understand. You're just not very smart. I can't really expect you to pass this exam, so I'm going to let this slide. How would you feel if I did that? Disrespect is exactly the right word. Do you guys feel that? Would you feel disrespected? Okay. So that's how Kant sees this, right? To not punish a convicted criminal is to disrespect them in the worst way possible, okay? Because you're treating them as a mere thing. You're treating them as something that's not capable of rational thought, okay? So Kant says not to punish is to disrespect. All right, and that's kind of a key point, all right? That's an important point, all right? Not to punish is to disrespect, all right? So that might seem a little bit surprising, all right? Because it's kind of embarrassing, I would imagine, to be convicted of a crime, right? That's why they used to put people in those stocks back in Kant's. You know what I'm talking about? Back in Kant's days when they put the person in the town square with their head in the thing. All right. So you know, Kant's got this point of view, so think about the difference between you, how you might see like an adult. It could be, you catch her spray painting a wall, all right, she's committing vandalism, and how you would view like a 4-year-old who's drawn on a wall with a crayon. Okay, think about the different ways you would think about those two situations, okay? Would you punish that child in a retributive sense? I hope not, right? Okay, but the adult, like, that makes more sense to do, right? Okay, so unless you lose your head from anger, you're not really gonna punish that 4-year-old, not in the retributive sense, right? Because she doesn't know any better, all right? Even if you put that child in timeout or something, you aren't doing this because of like justice, because like justice has to be restored, right? You're doing it to correct her future behavior, okay? That's the same way if you have like a cat or something and the cat scratches the furniture, you might like spray your cat with a water bottle, but if you're a good cat owner, you're not gonna flip out on that cat and be like, oh, I'm gonna punish you, you know, like whatever, okay? All right, so does everybody kind of understand that? Okay, but if you took that adult who put the graffiti on the wall and you don't punish her, you let her off the hook, or you try to do something that's gonna correct her behavior without punishing her, as opposed to doing retributive justice, you're disrespecting her, exactly like you guys were saying. It's disrespectful, right? What are you treating her as if you do that? You're treating her as a child, but more, you're treating that adult person as if she was a small child, or even worse, you're treating her like a non-human animal. You're disciplining her the way you train a puppy, right? So, that's enormously disrespectful. It's the worst kind of disrespect because it's disrespecting that criminal status as what? What's that? Well, human, but what's so special about humans? Yeah.
Rational agent.
Yeah, that's right. You're disrespecting her status as a rational agent, right? And furthermore, you're treating her like a means, okay? If you're like, my goal here, it's not to restore justice, it's to fix you so you can get back out into society, and then society is going to be better. You're using her as a means to an end. You're using her to make society better, okay? So you got to treat her as an ends, as a rational agent who decided what to do, and she's responsible for her goals and actions, and now you got to pay her the respect to punish her. Okay? Don't disrespect her. Don't treat her like she's an irrational agent. All right, does everybody understand where Kant's coming from here? You think it makes sense? I mean, it's one of those weird things, man. It's like, it seems weird to say, but when you follow through on the reasoning, it kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. All right, are there any questions on anything? Okay, look. I got more to say, but I think I'm actually going to stop now because I've covered everything that's going to be on the exam, okay? So, this is what I'm going to do, okay? So Tuesdays, I'm going to put a video up on Tuesday. It's going to be exam review, all right? If there's something that you want me to cover well, I mean, I'm not going to record it on Tuesday because I'm going to be gone, so I'm going to record that thing tonight, all right? So if there's something that you specifically want me to cover, you email me and let me know what you want me to cover before, like in the next hour or so. Otherwise, it's going to be I'm just going to kind of cover what I think is important, all right? All right, hey, you guys take care. I will see you back here on Thursday, okay? I'll see you back here on Thursday for exam time, all right?
Thank you.
No problem.